Welcome back to Jury Duty. We hope you enjoy this one-on-one with Mr. Tom Evans. He was a juror in the Lori Vallow, Idaho trial and is the author of Money, Power, and Sex, the Lori Vallow Daybell trial. We've linked that in the description below if you want to check it out. It's a great read. We did have some probing questions for Tom. Plus, we find out if his attempts to reach out to Lori behind bars have been successful. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And of course, leave your comments. Let's get into it. Tom, thank you so much for coming on our podcast. It's different being on this side of the microphone with us, isn't it?
Thanks for having me.
Yes, we're very excited to have Tom. Tom is someone that we communicated a lot with when we were helping at another podcast. And
Silver Linings, shout out Silver Linings
podcast. And we're just delighted that he is willing to come on here and talk to us about his experience on the trial. And also kind of get his take on some things that are in the news right now with Lori.
Yeah, we want as many perspectives as possible. Words are hard today, especially how it affects the average person. So in this case, as a juror, we're really grateful to have you on. And hopefully you can give us some juicy tea about your second book. I think the last time we heard about it, you were debating whether or not you wanted to release it at a certain time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it just depends. I have the manuscript done. Of course, it's not really a finished product, but right now I'm in the process of trying to find a publisher.
Was it harder to write this book or the first book?
Probably this book. The first book seemed to just flow out of me.
Yeah.
The second book, it's a little more comprehensive, and I had to do more research.
I really loved your insight on the first book. I'm super excited to read this book that you have coming up. My question is, I've been really anxious to ask you this question, so I'm just going to ask. So I don't know if you've been following the Delphi murder trial at all or read about it in the news. Have you?
No. So I'm not really a true crime guy, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Shocking.
Yeah. I'm purposely not following other cases while I'm still writing about this one.
No, that's fair. But so I guess what I wanted to ask about is, so that trial is currently going on, and in that jurisdiction, jurors are actually allowed to ask questions to witnesses and some of the professionals that they have. Do you think that you would have been one to ask a bunch of questions or any at all, or were you more of like processing information given, and that's how you came to kind of what your thoughts were about Lori and what had happened?
Yeah, there were a few times when there seemed to be like an obvious question that we weren't getting an answer to. And, sometimes I felt like jumping up in my seat and saying, well, what about this?
Yeah.
Obviously, I knew I couldn't do that, but it would have been nice to be able to just, send in a question or something. And
Trust me, we wanted to jump out of our seats a lot too. I think my follow-up to that is, do you think it would have helped with any of the evidence, or was there any evidence that left you all scratching your heads? Like, I think that's what that meant. To be able to ask a forensic crime scene investigator, what exactly does this mean? Or, a follow-up question in case you're confused. Do you think that would have been helpful while you were deliberating?
Yeah, there was so much evidence, and so much of it was so technical, the cell phone location stuff. It was enough. I understood enough of it to come to a conclusion in my mind to get the point they were trying to make. But I was just interested and curious about some of the things that they explained that I couldn't quite understand.
Speaking of understanding, that actually leads to my question, and it's a long one. But being in a deliberation room is something only a few people, when you think about how many people are in the United States of America, that only a few people get to do. I read that a small population of jurors stated that younger people on their juries seem to have made up their minds about 20% quicker than someone 50 plus or who had reached middle age, who had enough life experience to understand some of the context, with inference. And a lot of the evidence as well. They had a better understanding, but they took longer, about 80% way through the trial, to make up their minds before they hit the deliberation room. Do you think that was true with your fellow jurors? Did there seem to be any noticeable conclusion differences between younger and more experienced jurors?
So in this trial, there were 18 jurors, and 6 would be alternates. And we wouldn't know who the alternates would be until right before they went into deliberations. And going into the trial, I didn't want to be there. I didn't want any part of jury duty. But by the time I'd sat through the whole trial, I was invested. And the last thing I wanted was to be an alternate, but I turned out to be an alternate. So I didn't sit through deliberations.
Did you guys ever give each other looks
blink twice if you think it's true?
Because you're kind of not allowed to, but I wouldn't have been able to help myself because you guys build kind of a rapport with each other.
Right. I didn't really notice any of that. There were times when you couldn't help but show some kind of emotion, for sure. There was some crying and there were some definite expressions you could see on people's faces, but it's not like we would turn to each other and look at each other and purposely express some kind of emotion with our faces. But yeah, so as far as your question goes, I think about halfway through the trial, I was pretty well convinced. I knew it was my job to stay objective, and I did that. But still, I feel like the prosecution probably could have proven their case in about half the time. At least they had it proven to me in about half the time. But I understand that they wanted to make sure that they presented all of the evidence and did the best job that they could. So it kind of felt like we were sitting there a little longer than maybe we would have needed to. And then there wasn't really any defense in that trial, right? So didn't have the opportunity to hear what the defense might have had to say, other than, they cross-examined a few witnesses, but they didn't bring in any of their own defense.
So you said that you didn't want to be there in jury duty. That's a pretty common theme with a lot of people, especially, if you Googled how to get out of jury duty, there's no shortage of really some inventive stuff on the internet.
Yeah.
Did you have any strong feelings about jury duty, or was it just, I really just don't want to do this?
No, it was more, if we were going into springtime, I had a lot of plans. I had a whole list of things that I needed to do. And this was going to interrupt all of that. They told us, I didn't even know what trial I was going in for. They told us it was going to be up to 8 weeks. So 2 months of my life was going to be just totally disrupted. Yeah. And I had no idea how much even then it was really going to be disrupted, because you couldn't do anything but the trial.
Right.
I would be exhausted when I got home.
And you can't talk about it. There's no release.
Couldn't talk about it. Couldn't talk to my wife or anybody about it. Couldn't talk to the other jurors about it. Couldn't try to find answers to any of my questions.
Yeah.
So we waited out.
Would you do it again?
I would, so feeling like I didn't want to be there going in. But by the time it was over, about halfway through, I would say, my feelings about it totally changed. First of all, I felt a huge responsibility to the victims, the families, everybody involved in it. Wanted to make sure justice was served. But also I began to really feel proud of what I was seeing, the system at work in Idaho. So that really changed things around for me.
That's a good point. Lindsay and I have talked about a little bit in our introduction video. People really hate jury duty. And then a case like this comes around and we all talk about, oh my God, I wish I was on that jury. Maybe it's because it feels like more of a sense of justice, then you can do some right and correct some wrongs as best you can by doing your civic duty. But if you had to go to traffic court and sit on a jury about, I imagine that's a way different feeling. So that's food for thought for me.
It's a lot more interesting for sure, but at the same time, I don't think anybody would want to put themselves through it. Knowing what it's like now, having done it, I would not choose to do it again. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody. It's not fun. It's a lot of responsibility, and it does take a toll.
Yeah, I have a question. do you feel like after the trial was over, the sentencing was done, you kind of had this like release a little bit, like this coming off of an adrenaline almost? I don't know if that makes sense, but like,
like
you
a roller
prepare
coaster?
yeah, like you prepare, or you're going through something and it's getting you kind of wound up and then it's over and you just kind of like tank a little bit. Did you experience that at all?
Not really.
Not
I
really.
think, yeah, that's probably kind of surprising. But for me, I think at that point, I had so many questions, and I was at least contemplating writing the book because I knew I had to get answers to some of the questions. And also, I wanted to meet some of the people that were involved.
Yeah.
I had to sit there and listen to them testify or whatever, watch them in the gallery. I didn't know who, any of the members of the family were or anything, but I had a strong feeling that I needed to get to know those people. So I had a lot of work to do, I guess, when it was over.
Yeah.
Was there anyone you didn't get to meet that you wanted to meet?
You could check us off the list. It's fine.
I know. He's like, never again. I'm done with you.
I think I got to meet everybody I wanted to meet, and everybody was so generous with their time.
Mm-hmm.
I was really impressed with that. I didn't have any idea that it would be that way. But I went to talk to Detective Hermosillo and the prosecution team, and so many others, Judge Boyce, Courtney as court attorney, all the family members. They were all so willing to talk to me, take me in, and just spend time with me. That really impressed.
Did you make any lifelong friends from that group of people?
I did, a lot of them. Yeah. Tammy's aunt, Vicky, I've gotten really close to and really appreciate her. Kay and Larry. I mentioned Detective Hermosillo. I've spent a lot of time with these people, and I hope I don't lose touch with them. I'd like to stay in touch with them, stay in contact with them.
That's nice. That's like one, I hate to say silver lining, but there's no other term for it.
Well, it is, yeah.
It's a great silver lining from something.
Yeah, unfortunately, we live on opposite sides of Idaho because they're in Rexburg, in that area. Right. So we don't get to hang out every day or anything like that.
So did you have to, I don't remember, were you all sequestered? Did you have to commute back and forth?
We were not sequestered, but
oh gosh,
we had to meet at a parking lot. They told us that we would meet at an undisclosed location and it would get changed regularly. And we had to ride in vans with guards into the basement of the courthouse every day, and then the same way on the way home. And in the beginning, I didn't know why that was. I just assumed it was because they thought we were in some kind of danger.
Yeah.
I didn't know who any of these people were, what the real crimes were, or anything. And so I told my wife to lock the doors during the day, and stuff like that. But it turns out I think they were more concerned about the media getting hold of us and that having an effect on the trial.
Probably would have been nice to have that context up front, so you didn't have to tell your wife to lock your door and grab the baseball bat every time the mailman came.
Yeah. Well, so when it was all over, did you have like a swarm of people wanting to talk and interview with you? Or did they kind of just trickle in?
Yeah, there was a little bit of that, but I think because I think I turned it around on them before they had a chance.
Oh,
right?
really?
I was contacting everybody in the media who was involved to ask questions. There were a few people who had followed it so closely that I knew they were so knowledgeable, and they would be the ones to answer my questions. So I did that right away.
Did you do any research after it was over? Did you find any information that you didn't hear at trial that you thought maybe, well, that would have made a difference?
I researched everything.
Yeah. Well, you wrote a book. Of course you did. That was a stupid question, but...
Well, I hadn't watched like the Netflix documentary or any of that.
Dateline and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Did you learn anything new from that, or was it just, oh, this is extra context? Maybe not necessary at trial, but it's definitely illuminating.
Yeah, there was a lot to learn about Lori and about Chad and about Alex, talking to their families.
Okay, can I share an unpopular opinion about the trial?
If you must, but just be warned, the internet is there.
I know. Okay, so my question is this, Tom. Did you believe Audrey Baratario? Did you believe her testimony about what she said Lori said to her?
You know, I remember sitting there, and I remember her getting cross-examined by Jim Archibald. And that was kind of a highlight of the trial for me, because finally he was putting up a defense.
Drama,
Yeah, there was a little drama, a little excitement.
yeah.
And I questioned that. I wasn't sure. I had no reason to believe her, no reason not to believe her. She could have been lying. There was just no way for me really to know at that point.
I did not believe that story. Okay, so for those people who are listening and you don't know, you don't know what I'm talking about, YouTube, Audrey Baratario, testimony, Lori Vallow.
Good luck spelling Baratario. We can't help you there.
Sound it out. Let me explain why I did not believe that story that she said.
Go for it.
Lori, the whole trial, I was not there, but from my understanding is she was very like, yep, that's, and she just kind of sat there and just minded her business. The only time she got upset, from my understanding, is when she heard that story, like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, that was one of the few times that I saw her show any kind of emotion.
That's why I don't believe her.
Yeah. I don't know, though, if you can really take any of the emotion that Lori showed for truth and how she's really feeling. It's hard to say.
Which is the lesser evil of the two liars?
Right.
Yeah. Well, and
like,
it was like, how you hear, how you hear a story and it just hits you in a way you're like, I don't know about that. That was one of those times.
It was that way.
Yeah.
So hard to believe. But yeah, her in particular, when she said that Lori told her that she was going to cut her up and there was going to be bags and blood and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It seemed a little contrived to me, too.
Too far.
Yeah. Yeah.
Too far.
And she's never spoken about that before. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know.
She didn't bring any of that up in any of the pretrial stuff.
Yeah.
I feel like the unpopular opinion would be to say you did believe it, because I don't think anyone believes it.
I
think you're in the majority there.
I thought a lot of people did.
Oh, maybe it's just a small corner of the internet that I hang out in, but not a one person
really
that I observed believed it.
Well, so many of those witnesses it's hard to believe anything that they say, right? I mean, you can't say for sure, well, I believe this person because I believe in them.
Right.
I mean, a lot of them are pretty flaky and dishonest, and you just have to kind of take it all with a grain of salt.
I imagine the nuances of the LDS faith probably didn't help that, because not many people are familiar with the fundamentals of what being in the LDS faith is like. So some people might think it's weird that Christians believe in some dude that was walking on water and turning water into wine. The same way that people probably heard some of those stories, especially when they started talking about scripture and went, what? You have to be open-minded about that kind of thing. But I imagine it was already difficult to wrap the mind around for someone that had no idea about the religious doctrine and beliefs, and then which part of it was conflated. Like, no, that sounds like a Harry Potter book, not like, I don't know. I think for me, that would have made it a lot more challenging if I knew absolutely nothing. And I'm like, does anyone here make sense? I don't know what they're talking about. But that person seems to know what they're talking about, and everyone's nodding. But that person said that they were flying around and they were on a magic carpet later that night, and some people were still nodding. So I don't know.
They got some of their stuff, I think, literally from Harry Potter and from some other books like that. And some of it some of it came right out of the Doctrine and Covenants of the Mormon Church.
Chad said he felt like Harry Potter under the stairs, right? I didn't mean to bring up Harry Potter. It's just the first fantasy novel I could think of, but you're right. You're absolutely right.
Full circle moment.
But I had to, I haven't read Harry Potter, but I did.
I haven't either.
I did know a little bit about, I'm not Mormon, but I studied a little bit about it.
Okay.
But by the time the trial was over, I had to go back and really find out about some of those things.
Do some fact checking.
Yeah. So my next question is during the trial, if you had one moment where you could hold Lori's feet to the fire, and make her answer something just truthfully, crystal clear, what question would you ask her?
I think I would have a lot of questions for Lori. Who had the original idea to kill the kids? Was it her or Chad? What makes her think that she's the chosen one, that she's so special, she's above us all? Why not just have Chad divorce Tammy, let Tammy live? Because I kind of know the answer to that one. In the Mormon world, divorce isn't.
Better to kill than divorce.
Not that murder's okay.
Right.
I think the thing that's haunted me the most is Tylee and her relationship with Tylee. So I would probably ask her a lot of questions about Tylee. I'd like to know if Tylee knew that she was going to be murdered the night she was murdered. I know that Tylee knew there was danger there from her mom.
Yeah.
That's a really sad thought. Why did Tylee go with Alex that night? The night she was murdered? Did she voluntarily just drive off with Alex in the middle of the night after they got home from Yellowstone, or how did that all come about? Does she have any
it's still her uncle, She may have been in fear, but she still inherently knows, okay, I trust this person, I guess.
Well, I know there was a fight that night between Lori and Tylee. I think that was pretty common, and Tylee might have went off just mad.
Yeah.
Having no idea what was coming. But Tylee was smart. I don't know that I think she might have known, at least had an idea that Alex was dangerous. I'd like to know if Lori has any feelings at all for the victims, for the families, for the police, for the jurors, everybody who had to sit through all of this, investigate it. It's affected everybody. I'd like to know, did they murder Eldon Clausen, the nosy neighbor? He died of a pulmonary embolism.
As did Alex.
Right? And also Joe Ryan. So,
wow, that's right.
Yeah, a lot of coincidences there.
More than two is not a coincidence. That's a pattern.
Right. It's a pattern, exactly. And he died not long after JJ was killed. So maybe he saw something. He was always walking around the neighborhood.
Now I want to know.
I'd like to know how Joe Ryan really died. There's a little bit of evidence to indicate that maybe Lori was there when he died, and she's not supposed to have been. He was supposed to have died of natural causes, and his body was in his apartment until somebody's dog smelled it.
That's awful. I don't care what awful things you might have done to somebody else. You don't deserve to go out that way. Like, I care about the awful things you've done, but I don't think any human really deserves that kind of suffering. Right. And then to linger.
Right. I'd like to know how she convinced her brother Alex to do the things that she convinced him to do.
Yeah.
How do you convince another person that the right path is to murder children? Somehow that's the right thing to do.
I feel like a lot of people need to be asked that question.
I'd like to know what was about Chad that attracted her. I know she was attracted to him before she met him. I think she was attracted to the idea of him and his books and everything. But there's something more there, I think. And I'd really like to know about her childhood, right? Like, what was her childhood like? Was there anything in her childhood that caused her to be the kind of person that she turned out to be? And I've asked that question to Rex and Adam and everybody I could, kind of Megan, anybody who was close to Lori.
Yeah.
It seems like, it was within the bounds of being normal, at least. It wasn't fully out there.
Well, I can't answer the question about why she was so into Chad. His name is Chad. Let's start there. I feel like no good story starts with a Chad. But before that Idaho trial started, there were questions about her competency, and something that they listed was specifically that she might have had narcissistic tendencies. And what I think the answer is, I am not a doctor, I only play one on TV, but I did almost become one. Narcissists they're not malignant narcissists, but the type of narcissists that they both are, because I'm convinced that they both are, they actually bond really well together because they have this shared understanding about what the other one wants. And it's usually power, control, admiration. And I think that she had an intense connection with Chad because A, he validated her ego and she did the same for him. And then B, because he had this sort of power that you can't measure, you can't see, you just have to take it on blind faith. And that's exactly what she needed, because we know she doesn't deal in truth and a moral compass. She deals in sort of these spades of fantasy, and she wouldn't have needed anyone to validate this fantasy for her, because if you can't see it, that means you just don't believe. I think he provided that extra bit of validation for her, and that she gave him an obvious bump on the Richter scale of attractiveness, I think, just by existing with him, unfortunately.
Yeah.
That's my hot take.
Well, Tom, did you listen to Colby's interview with her, with Lori?
I did.
What was your thought on that? Or thoughts, I should say.
Yeah. Colby's testimony in court, really, that was one of the moments in court it was all hard. But that was one of the hardest things that I ever had to sit there and watch when he testified in Lori's trial, especially. But that interview with Lori, it was bizarre. And it just showed me for sure what I already thought. You know, she's, in her way, she's crazy. But only in her way. Like, she's able to know right from wrong. She's not like the person that's out ranting on the street crazy.
Yeah.
But obviously she has some, you know, she doesn't have a good grasp of reality. That reinforced that for sure. Some of the things that she said, though, trying to remember back to what all it was that she said, but some of it was
how she said that Tylee and JJ passed away.
Yeah,
Tylee did it, and it was an impulse reaction, and it was an accident. I'm like, are you really going to blame this on Tylee? I couldn't finish it. I'll be honest. I didn't finish it. I couldn't get past that. It made me so angry I couldn't finish it. I don't know how Colby did it.
Yeah, it reminded me of sitting through her sentencing when she spoke. And really, post-trial, those are the only 2 times that I've heard her speak. Yeah. And it was just the same kind of garbage.
Yeah.
Right. Except that I guess she believes. Still not totally convinced of that, but.
Yeah. I don't know if she actually believes it either. I think she believes it enough to sell it. I don't know what. We may never know. I don't think we ever will.
Yeah.
She'll meet her maker, not telling us.
Yeah. I've been trying to contact her. There's actually an app you can go on and talk to people in the Maricopa County Jail. And I've been trying to do that, but she won't answer me. I don't know why she would. But I did.
Tom Evans. That's why she should answer you, Tom.
Who knows why she said that Tylee was a murderer, but crazier things have happened.
I did talk to somebody who said she is willing to talk to people, and she has talked to people on the outside, but she's only willing to talk to people about her religious beliefs. I'll try that angle, but I still got no response.
Really? Yeah, I know that she speaks. I don't know if she still does, but I know that Summer and Janice have had contact with her. But that would make total sense to me, that the only way she would want to communicate was if she could espouse these beliefs, this belief system that she has, to further it. That has to tell you where her head is at. Her priorities are me. Yeah.
Yeah, I think she still keeps up with some former inmates and whatnot, just for religious purposes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, have you heard the recent update about her competency and her wanting to defend herself?
I'm kind of confused by that. Maybe you can clear it up.
Yeah.
Is the trial on for February 4th, or has that now been postponed?
Right now, it seems like it's being delayed. I think that they vacated the trial date because, and here's my theory. Colby records that conversation. He releases it on the internet on October 6th. By October 16th, she requested to withdraw her counsel and to represent herself pro se. The judge on the 25th made public that request and said, you know what? Before we even go there, you need a competency hearing. You need a Rule 11 because the judge is worried about her mental state and her capacity to even defend herself, nonetheless, be her own counsel. So I think that phone call really, it either helped because that's what she wanted, more delays, incompetency, or it really hurt. But if she's not competent again to stand trial, she's definitely not competent to represent herself. But that's where she is now. She's waiting on competency. We don't know what the trial date will be or if it's possible to keep the trial date the way that it is. But the judge won't make a decision on whether she can represent herself until after she's done with the competency stuff. I'm willing to guess that legally speaking, you can't sign paperwork when you're inebriated or under the influence. I guess it's the same thing. You can't defend yourself if you're not in a sane state of mind. So we're kind of in limbo waiting to hear about her competency. And if she is competent, I wonder if that judge will let her defend. I mean, she has a right, but that's going to be wild.
Well,
wild.
I read about the competency thing and how that works a while back, and I don't remember exactly, but it's something like you have to go in for 3 months, and then you're either deemed competent or not at the end of that time, and then if it's not, then it's 6 months. Yeah. It's something like that, so it can cause huge delays.
I think that's what she wants, but she hates being in Arizona. She wants to go back to Idaho, so I don't know why she would tank her own. Yeah. Maybe she thinks she'll end up staying in Arizona. I don't know, but it's definitely going to be delayed. We just don't know how much now, but you got to wonder if that tactic in talking to Colby and saying, I don't want to talk to anyone but you. Right. I'm pretty sure he told her he was going to record their conversation. I don't know. This seems like a really contrived stall tactic that is very bizarre. But what isn't bizarre with Lori? I don't know.
Who can explain anything that she does?
I've given up trying.
It would be kind of entertaining to watch her defend herself.
Oh, she's no Ted Bundy, but I'd watch that. I'm not going to lie.
It would.
I would watch that
for me.
I'm gonna watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. So, for some people, it'd be entertaining, and on some level, for me, I would be entertained by that.
Yes.
But on the other hand, I know she'd be very hurtful, and really close to the case. I think could be really hurt by her just having free range to say whatever she wants in court.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, I mean, think about her opening statement and her closing statement and the things that she would say. I mean, I feel like if she had a family member come up on the stand, she wouldn't talk to him, you know.
Can you give someone the silent treatment when they're your witness?
I mean, she wouldn't call them, but if she wouldn't cross-examine them.
Oh, that's true. She could just decide to have no questions, but that doesn't really help her very much.
Mm-mm.
Then again, as Tom said earlier, she didn't really put up a defense the first time.
Exactly.
That's true.
So full deal this time too.
Yeah.
So now she'd have total control of the narrative and what legal steps she would want to take. She could just sit there in silence the entire time, aside from motions and things she'd have to respond to the judge, like call and response. That's all she would literally have to do. And then can she appeal her own conviction if she gets convicted for ineffective assistance of counsel?
It's so manipulative. She's manipulating the court system, and that's her MO, right? That's all she's ever done is manipulate people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Up till recently, quite successfully somehow.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, because she's surrounding herself with people who could be manipulated.
Right.
But
that's fair.
The court system only so far.
That's true.
Yeah. All right.
Ooh.
Last question. Kimberly, do you want to ask?
I do. I'm so excited.
Okay.
We have to have a fun question, and this one always just, I don't know. The answers are always very fantastic. If you, he knows the question.
He knows,
but I'm going to ask it. If
Yeah.
you have to wear for the rest of your life a wet shirt or wet pants, which would it be?
Yeah, so it turns out that's easy for me. But
Really?
I'm glad I got to see the question ahead of time because I had to think about it for a minute.
Okay.
But I would have to go with shirt.
Same.
Because if my pants were wet, somebody might think I had an accident. That would be
That's true. Yeah, that's a good point.
See, I'm just that person that has to have I wanted to be a doctor and I wanted to be a lawyer. I couldn't decide which. So I kind of studied both and didn't finish either one. The lawyer in me would ask way too many questions. Well, what kind of pants are they? Are they jeans? If they're jeans, couldn't pay me to wear wet jeans. Are they sweatpants that might dry quick? I don't know. I have no, but I went with shirt. Right.
I never really thought of those questions.
Am I going to squish around? Like there, I had questions, which is least comfortable. Okay, we're not going to go with that. But then the rabbit hole of what kind of pants am I wearing? So I'm like, I wonder what other people would say and what kind of weird questions they'd ask themselves. And it might just be me, but that's where my brain went.
The pants that I wear, which are like jeans or denim.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's the first thing I think of. Jeans. It's like going to a water park in jeans. It makes me feel ick just thinking about people that wear jeans to a water park. You're on the red flag list. In any case. Well, thank you for being a good sport about that question. And thank you for being here and giving us your time and giving us more insight into all of your thoughts on Lori Vallow and for giving us, sort of the backstage on things that people always want to know about. Even if they've seen your interviews before, I always think there's something new you can learn when you talk to someone more than one time. I just do. So I really appreciate you being here with us.
Well, thank you for having me. I enjoyed it.
We enjoy your company, Tom. We really do. And hopefully we will have, you'll come back on, right?
With book number 2, for sure,
yes.
right?
Yes. Yeah, and we're going to have a return appointment.
Right. And we're going to link the information, if you want to get Tom's book, in the description of this episode. Please read it. I loved it. I can't wait for the second book. Mr. Tom Evans, you ran the gauntlet. You answered the wet pants question. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.